Welcome to ACOS, All Kinds of Stuff, the podcast that, just like its host, has a hard time focusing on just one thing. So we talk about a little bit of everything. Glad you're here. Let's get this party started.
Welcome back to ACOS Movie Night. This is Movie Edition, and this is your host, David Ritchie. And as I have stated, anytime we do movies, I plan to have a guest. Now, we have what will be a guest today, but he is going trial by fire. As soon as this one's over, he officially becomes a co-host. So guest today, co-host next time. Introduce yourself to everybody, Justin.
I'm Justin Lindsay, and I am 35 years old, live in La Mesa, and I have been an avid movie buff since my very first movie, Jurassic Park, when I was 5.
Justin single-handedly keeps the Alamo Drafthouse in business.
Yes. Yeah, it is my home away from home.
The pandemic did not make him not go to the theater. Justin is like me. He's a movie buff, and that's why I always thought he'd be a perfect fit for this. Now, I do think, and Justin, correct me if I'm wrong, you have a pretty wide, eclectic, I would use the word, taste in movies. Am I right?
Yeah, there's not one I don't like. There's not a genre that I don't like going to go see. I'll even sit down and watch a romance, which is probably the one I'll go to fewer than the others. But yes, I watch anything with any actor, any genre. It's just... Yeah, I'm a pretty wide swath of movies in my range of being a movie buff. If
you had to pick one genre, all right, like let's say it's a snow day, me and you don't have to go to work. It's really not, it's sunny outside, but just, everybody close your mind. It's a snow day, you don't have to go to work. What, like, perfect day, laying on your couch, what kind of movies are you going to watch?
I'm probably going to tend to lean more towards adventure action / sci-fi.
Okay, and we'll get into that later on, but give me your favorite sci-fi movie.
I'd have to say
we put him on the spot.
Yeah, that was a great question because there's so many that's great. I will say right now it's probably any of the original Star Wars movies or the new Dune. The new Dune kind of piqued my interest a little bit of what that franchise could be.
I did not see Dune.
Oh, it's a good one. Yeah, you need to sit down and watch it. Best acting that I've seen in a long time.
I read good things about it, and I will watch it at some point in time. Okay, so Justin's volunteered to help me. Volunteer is a strong word. Honestly, when I started doing this, I always had Justin in my mind because I just thought this would be something he would enjoy.
Absolutely.
Good. I was about to ask, am I correct on that?
Yes.
So last night we got on Zencastr, which, and Justin, as I've started this podcast to other new podcasters, I always say we have an audience of 0 today, and my goal is to grow it to an audience of 3 because we know Frankie and Stacy will listen. So we've got to find one more person. Our goal is an audience of 3 in a year. Do you think we can pull that off?
Oh yeah. It's not like we're not popular enough to get that.
We're popular in the very small West Texas town of La Mesa, Texas. Now, Justin, and I'm going to recruit him. Justin I am an anti-social media person. Now, I did create a new Twitter handle, Justin, just for this podcast. It is.
Oh, wow.
It is totally like there's no followers right now because until we push all this out. But you're going to be our Facebook advertiser, all right?
Okay. Gotcha. Deal.
Because I stay far, far away from Facebook. You know this about me.
Yes. And I envy you on most days.
So we're using GarageBand, and I'm just saying this to anybody else that's trying to figure out how to podcast. I've just been kind of figuring out as I go. I hope the quality is getting a little bit better as we do them, and I hope it only improves. But I put the podcast together with GarageBand, but me and Justin experimented last night with Zencastr because this is the first time I've had a guest, future co-host, on a podcast that wasn't sitting in the same room. Justin, I had Hayden and Logan on here. He knows my sons. We did a 25-minute review of Lord of the Rings, but it was just literally sitting all around this one table, passing the mic back and forth. But he and I messed around with Zencastr last night, and we think it's going to work pretty well, don't we?
Yes, yeah, I love the format, and it's real easy to use. And I'm sitting in my office right now at home, and you're sitting literally like 3 blocks away from me. So that it's pretty cool to be able to collaborate like this, not in the same location.
And we plan to have a few more. So at the end of the day, what now the reason I was talking about Justin's love for all movies is anybody that knows me knows I'm a horror movie junkie, and I do want to talk about all movies on this, but I'm not gonna lie, there'll be a whole lot of talk about horror and scary movies, and I would eventually like, and I told him this last night, to start talking about franchises and try to find, and I know it's going to be hard on the Halloweens and the Friday the 13th, but try to find at least one guest per episode that's never seen it. And so they watch it, and then they talk to me and Justin about it, and we kind of shoot the bull about it. But I think it'd be fun to find people that had never seen these movies. So last night we talked about possibly doing Halloween and trying to lead up to the new Halloween. So Justin, be thinking in your head who we know that has never seen Halloween, because I don't know. If I have a single friend. If I do have a friend on earth that's never seen the original Halloween, I need to reflect on why they are my friend.
Yeah, that's very true.
So be on the lookout for that. So the movie, this is our trial run. This is our first little go around at this. So we picked the Texas Chainsaw Massacre because we do both have Netflix, and so he watched it. When did you watch it, Justin?
I watched it last night, probably right after we got through our trial of the Zencaster. I got on there and watched it right then.
And so Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I'm going to kind of give a little synopsis about it. And the way we're going to do this deal is we're going to kind of talk about the movie. This movie will have, this discussion will have spoilers. So if our 3 listeners have not seen it and they want to watch it before we talk about it, I would tell you to push pause, go spend an hour and I think it was about an hour and 23 minutes.
Yeah.
And then come back to us. But once we kind of go through the plot and some of that stuff, we're going to divide it up into 3 things we liked and 3 things we didn't like. Now, Justin, I'm a positive outlook person, so we'll always start with the things we liked.
Absolutely. That sounds a great plan.
But I don't want to end with negative, right? We got to end with happiness. So in my head, we'll kind of go back and forth. We'll do the 2 things we liked, then we'll talk about the 3 things we didn't, and then we'll end with the last thing we liked. How's that sound?
Okay. Sounds like a perfect plan. I like it.
All right. So Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022 came to Netflix. I think, Justin, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was last weekend when it came on.
Yeah, that's when I started seeing the reviews about it, and people were kind of raving about it last weekend. And so I was going to check it out last weekend, but I'm kind of glad I waited so that it could be fresh on my mind today. But yeah, last weekend.
Well, I had the boys. I had Hayden and Logan last weekend, so unfortunately, we watched a lot of movies, but Texas Chainsaw Massacre was not one of them. I liked that it was on Netflix, and Justin, we live in a different world with movies now where we don't always have to go to the theater, and you're a theater junkie.
Yes.
And I love it too. I think it's a great experience, but I'm not going to lie, I don't dislike sometimes being able to just come home and watch them on my couch.
I agree. And right now, the front runner for the Oscars is The Power of the Dog, which Netflix released. So you're starting to see them kind of transcend into award contenders. And you got to think this was a mail-in DVD service when it first came out, and now look at how it's all.
I think I still have my last 3 rentals from about 15 years ago. So I hope Netflix never listens to this.
Yeah. A lot of people need to not listen if we're going to talk about. Yeah, a lot of people need to not listen if we talk about the things you have in your house.
That's true. Okay, so this one was directed by a guy named David Blue Garcia.
Yes.
It was called a direct sequel to the original 1974. I'm going to say it was kind of a direct sequel to the 1974 original. So before we get further, and again, I don't want to get too crazy in depth, Justin, on the OGs, because I think we'll come back if assuming this is a successful podcast as I think it's going to be, which as long as me and you enjoy doing it, that equals success.
Yes, I would agree.
So at some point I'd like to go through the whole Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, because did you realize I think there's 9 movies?
Mm-hmm. This is actually one of the first horror franchises I was able to. Growing up, I didn't watch a lot of horror. I was more of adventure and fantasy and stuff. But when I got into my college years, this was actually the remake. I think it came out in the mid 2000s or late 2000s. I watched that one, and then the Texas Chainsaw, the beginning, that came as a prequel to that one. So I kind of first got introduced to that and watched the old original version then. But yeah, I did not realize there were 9 movies until I kind of started doing research about the new one.
So okay, so if you kind of got into it in that 2003 to 6 range with the remake in the beginning, when did you first see the 1974 original?
When the first one came out, the first remake came out, I watched it prior to that to kind of get a comparison of the two. So probably around maybe 2005, 2006, somewhere around there.
Okay. I saw the original when I was in 6th grade. Now, I was in 6th grade twice, so I don't remember if it was my first 6th grade or my second 6th grade. But I guess that puts it in like 83 or 84. For the record, and I'm much, much older than Justin. Justin's wise beyond his years, though. We used to rent movies. Did you get to experience the video store, or was that after you?
Oh yeah, but Blockbuster Movie Gallery was one of my favorite places to go in Andrews growing up. Yeah, so yes, absolutely. It was. Yeah, it's a lost art at this point.
It's one of the greatest experiences that the younger generation will never get to take part in.
I will agree.
Well, I saw this one at a kid named Chad Grant's house. That's how I knew it was in Idalou still. I had not moved to Sweetwater yet. And I was a Friday the 13th guy, Halloween guy. This one was kind of the forbidden fruit. You'd seen the box and it says based on a true story. And,
Yeah.
So in 6th grade, it's kind of like that one that you know you're not supposed to be watching it at that age, but you just can't help yourself. But it's a different kind of movie. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and that's what kind of intrigued me to this franchise. Probably I lean a little bit more onto this one than most horror franchises, is that because, one, it's in the state that I was born and grew up in. 2, it's an area around Austin, Texas, where I like to frequent. And then thirdly, it was based on a true story. You're thinking there's some guy out there who thought this was a good idea to go chase teenagers around with a chainsaw. And so it intrigues me more than most horror franchises just because of that alone.
No doubt. And okay, so the original came out. We're just going to real quick run through these. Okay, the original came out in 1974. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Part 2 comes out in 1986. Now, I will tell the audience the part 2 was such a departure from the original.
Mm-hmm.
And again, Justin, I don't know if you've ever gone back with you starting kind of with the remakes. I don't know if you've gone back and watched the older sequels.
Yeah, I watched part 2. I don't know that I've watched anything after that. I mean, I watched part 1 and then I watched part 2. I thought, well, I want to see if that's, because they didn't make a sequel to the remake in 2003. They made a prequel to it. So I wanted to see what the sequel was like. And then I agree with you. It was such a departure from the first movie that I kind of lost interest after that.
Well, and I saw it at too young of an age because I think it's made to be comedy, the second one.
Yeah.
I need to, and I revisited last year, and I look forward to us having a conversation about it because it is so far different from the original. So then part 3 comes out in 1990. Now, for the record, I have read a lot of people and I listen to a lot of podcasts where they say part 3 is one of the worst movies ever made. I'm not gonna lie to you, I like it. I've always enjoyed part 3. And then in 95 came part 4, The Next Generation, which is famous. I don't know if you knew this, because it was the first movie from Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger.
Okay, I did. Yes, I did know this, and actually, now bringing that back to recollection, I have actually watched the new that one, the 4th one.
It's a tough watch, if I remember right.
Yeah, it is. And you would kind of wonder why they have the careers they have today based off of that.
Well, and we'll get to it at that time, but I'm pretty sure they filmed it well before they were famous, and the people knew it was bad, so I think they just put it on the shelf. And then when suddenly Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger got famous, they were like, "Hey, let's put that thing out there." Surprised it didn't ruin careers.
Much to their horror and
Okay, so in 2000 there was an unreleased one called All American Massacre, which, if I'm right, it was directed by Tobe Hooper. I've never seen it, but Tobe Hooper is also who directed the original. So that's one. If we do the franchise, we'll probably have to track down.
Yeah.
And then came where you come into it, the remake in 2003, which you liked, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I did. I liked it, especially when I watched the original. It wasn't exactly the same. It built on the nostalgia for the original, placing it in kind of a different time period and stuff. I also liked the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning, the prequel to it.
Which came out 3 years later.
Yes, and it was a gore fest, of course, and you didn't stay really too connected to the characters as you don't in most horror franchises, but it did try to ground it a little bit, and I think that was what kind of drew me to those.
And then it didn't have another sequel, prequel, requel, follow-up, whatever you want to call it, until 2013, and it's just called Texas Chainsaw, and if I remember right, I think that one was in 3D.
Yes, I didn't actually see that one because I was going through a phase at that time where I didn't like the 3D movies, and so I didn't really want to go and partake of that particular movie. So I have not seen that one. It's just the new one that I've seen.
That's a whole nother talk about 3D movies, but I'm going to say the 06, the 13 3D one, and then there was one in 2017 called Leatherface. None of them are horrible, I don't think. None of them are, I mean, like you were talking about Oscar winners the other day, none of them are going to be on that.
Yeah. Right. No.
But they're watchable.
Yeah. I don't think this franchise is teetered off into just absolutely horrible like some other franchises have.
And that brings us to 2022, where Netflix, in a whole new day and age of movie-going experiences, where Netflix somehow secures the rights, or I'm not going to lie, I don't really know how it came to be, but they released the 2022 Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Okay, and it starred some people that I'm not going to lie. I'll read these names. None of them were familiar to me. Sarah Yarkin, who was Mel. Elsie Fisher, who was Lila, who I thought we're going to kind of get to some of this here in a minute. Decent character.
Yeah.
Jacob Lattimore was Dante. Moe Dunfer was Richter. Now, Richter was the cowboy. You watched it last night, so he was that one that blew past him in the pickup.
Yes.
And I liked him.
I did too. And I thought that he was played well because you thought you could see him kind of becoming a villain, and you didn't really know that he might actually, spoiler alert, become a hero at that point.
Well, you're getting to my number 2 on my dislikes, but we'll talk about that here in a minute. I do not know how to say this one's last name, but Owen, I think it is Fourier because it is spelled Foure, but she plays Sally Hardesty.
Yes.
Because the original actress who played Sally Hardesty has passed away, so they couldn't get her. And then you had Mark Burnham as Leatherface. Now, there was some other people, but I just kind of picked the main ones. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So basically, if you wanted to talk plot, there's one part you're going to probably be able to explain to me. But basically, the plot was this group of very young entrepreneurs. They weren't teenagers. Well, one of them was. But they appeared to be very young entrepreneurs, have purchased the deeds to basically a ghost town in Texas. Is that kind of what you saw?
Yeah, I teetered around because they talked about the one building that they were trying to frequent, and then the lady was not going to let them frequent at the very beginning, which was the orphanage that gave way to Leatherface. But I kind of took it that they actually had the whole town. They were going to try to revitalize the whole town. So they had the coffee shop or the sandwichery or something that the blonde lady was going to do, and then they had the organization that they were going to open up in that house. So I kind of took it that they did secure maybe mini deeds to mini buildings, and we're trying to revamp a ghost town.
Which sounds crazy, but when I think about it, I think I read in the news maybe 4 or 5 months ago that Mark Cuban bought a whole Texas town. So maybe this is something that people that don't educate for a living and have a lot of disposable income. Maybe this is something that they do.
Yeah,
and then there's that whole bus of people, which I took it as those were the people they were trying to sell these places to.
Yeah, I think so. They were I teetered back and forth whether they were the investors because they were trying to present what they were doing, but I also kind of thought they looked a little young to be investors, which I mean I guess in this day and age doesn't mean anything. But I guess they were going to help secure maybe the workforce or the monetary means for these buildings to become revitalized and work.
That's kind of how I took it. And then, of course, you've got the old lady. You mentioned the orphanage earlier. There's confusion as to whether or not Dante actually purchased that one or not. There's still an old lady sitting in there. You see Leatherface for the first time up there menacingly standing at the top of those stairs.
Yes.
And that's kind of really what the bulk of the movie, the way I took it, was they kicked. Did you take that as Leatherface's mom?
Yeah, I kind of did, or at least, yeah, yeah. I kind of thought maybe adopted. As you know,
since it was an orphanage, you're right.
Right. The original one, I mean, if you really think about it, he was an adult. If it's a direct sequel, quote unquote. And then basically everybody in the house got massacred. So he didn't have a place to go. And so I kind of took it as maybe she was his keeper, or, he just didn't have a place to go. And the mentality in his brain is of a kid, small kid. And so he goes to this orphanage.
Well, that's why I said kind of a direct sequel, because you know me and I'm horrible at math, and Justin's an old math teacher. But if he was already grown in 1974, Leatherface is pushing 80-ish, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So that's why I think there's some holes in the plot, but we're not going to get into all that. But basically, that's what happens is they invade and try to remove him and his mom keeper orphanage lady thing, and then he decides to do away with them in all these creative ways. Would you say that's a pretty good synopsis of the plot?
I would, yeah, very much so. And I think it is, yeah, I think so. That's a great good synopsis of the plot.
All right, so here we go. We're going to start with like. So we each have three things we liked. We each have three things we didn't like, and we're going to kind of go back and forth. Now, I think I can say this, and you may have this, so please forgive me if I take one of your 1, 2, or 3 things you like.
No, you're good.
I didn't include this in my list because I felt like it was an overall part of the movie, but I did think the gore level, the violence, I mean, if you're coming to watch a pretty gory, scary movie, I think it pretty much checks the box in that regard.
Yeah, it definitely pushes the limits, especially when you are talking about other Texas Chainsaw Massacre entries in the franchise. That was one of the things I was glad that they did, just because it ups the ante a little bit. Because you're thinking, okay, he's going to go chase him around with a chainsaw. They're going to perceive to get chopped up, and we're not going to see anything. But no, this one was probably the bloodiest entry in the franchise that I've seen.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty graphic. Okay, so I'm going to start with my and again, mine are not listed as 1, 2, 3, good to bad, favorite to least favorite. I just wrote down 3 things. So the first thing I wrote down, all right. So, and as I say this, we can have a little discussion. The first thing I liked at the very beginning of the movie, I liked the shop she was in. Okay, so let me explain why I liked it, and I'm also going to tell you some things I wish they had done better. I like that. Obviously, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre had happened because when we're in that little convenience store, there's the TV up in the wall playing what I'm assuming is a video that they sell at this store. Is that how you took it?
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. It's kind of like you go into this convenience store, you can buy other things, but also it's turned into a tourist attraction. I mean, because people are intrigued by it. So they actually have, videos of paraphernalia. She picks up a chainsaw, little momentum off of the shelf. So it's turned into a tourist attraction.
Even and I like that.
I did too.
And in the real deal, I listened to a podcast called Buzzard View Manor, and she kind of talked about this when she reviewed it. And you may not know this, we need to make a trip. Did you know you can go to Bastrop and eat and spend the night, I believe, at the original gas station?
Yeah, I'd heard that before. Never been to Bastrop, so yeah, that may be a trip to take and see what they've got. Because I would bet it's almost like a tourist attraction too.
I went to Bastrop when I was little, but well before this. And on Buzzardview Manor, she's actually been able to track down the original house, which I think that'd be fun to go to.
That's
but
cool.
going back to why I like the shop, I think that it's that morbid curiosity that we have if we were just riding down some random road in Texas and you go in a store and all of a sudden they're talking about these murders that happened nearby. I can promise you 25-year-old me is now going on we are detouring so I can go look for where all this stuff happened. But I just thought it was cool. Now, one thing I and I'll say this a lot, I liked it. I feel like they could have done more with it. I think of an extreme version, and you may have never seen it, but when House of a Thousand Corpses, so they had these murders nearby, but done by Dr. Satan. And when you go into that store, Captain Spaulding's Fried Chicken and Murder Museum, it is this tourist attraction on steroids.
Oh, wow.
You know, and so I wish they would have done more with it.
Yeah.
And I was also kind of wondering who this guy was, because am I wrong when the girl calls over the walkie-talkie later on, he's the guy that hears it. Am I right?
Yes. And that's how I was like, I wonder if he was some kind of like constable or some kind of figurehead in the town, because why would he have access to that walkie or that channel, which came from like the law enforcement vehicle? So I was intrigued by that a little bit of what his role was, because I never really go into it too much.
And one thing that Texas Chainsaw movies do is, honestly, when you get to these small towns, you really never know who is with Leatherface and his family.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And that's another thing I like, is it kind of keeps you guessing. This one did on several occasions as well.
Well, I thought the cowboy, when I first met him, I was like, well, he's going to be one of them. But then when this guy intercepts the walkie, I thought, well, he's going to be one of them.
Right.
But as far as like, I liked that. I like setups in movies. I always like the calm before the storm, you know?
Yeah.
And I think when she goes in there, obviously we know as viewers what's about to happen, but I think it was pretty cool that it was real, and you could buy the corkscrew and you could have bought the VHS that told you all about, you know, what happened in 1974. I thought that was pretty cool. So that was my first like. All right. So what was your first like?
I'll have to go back to the gore, and I'm not typically a person that does a lot of gory movies. Much to be said that I can handle something like this, but not watching them put a needle in someone's arm. But I really thought that was something that shocked me, was that they actually upped the gore in this movie. And we're used in 2022 that the gore factor in horror movies can be, you know, moderate to high. But this one here, they found clever ways to use the chainsaw. They didn't immediately just pop it out. You actually got to see his face a little bit and added to the mystery a little bit of how he was going to put the mask on. And when he did and he started killing people, it was just really, even the first kill of the movie was very unique and creative, albeit gory. It set the tone for you knowing exactly what type of movie this is going to be, and that maybe the major players that were still left alive after that first kill were probably in huge trouble.
I thought that first. I guess that was that an ambulance? It was kind of an oldie ambulance. That was some pretty brutal stuff in that scene.
Yeah. That it set the tone very well, and I think I actually verbally uttered in my living room, "Oh crap!" You know, I wasn't expecting that too much. So
when he had that glass and he got the I guess that was Dante's girlfriend. I thought that was hard to watch. And that's when you know a movie's doing some things right, honestly, is when you're watching a horror movie that becomes sometimes hard to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and that one was a hard one to watch, agreed. But like, each one of them, you're kind of like, okay, he ups the ante a little bit in how they get butchered, for lack of a better word. And it just draws out, I don't know, I hate to say it draws out the drama a little bit, because when gore is done effectively, it's supposed to draw out drama and not really be a spectacle. And here it kind of hit both of those fronts from both sides. It was a spectacle, but it also drew out the drama, because you're like, oh man, if he's already doing that with the first two characters, and then you see some of the other stuff going on. My favorite kill, of course, is the girl that's trying to crawl out of the bus, and he immediately just eviscerates her with a chainsaw right out there. And I mean, it's just, you you keep thinking, oh, she's almost there, and it's like, oh crap, no, she's not. So yeah, it served its purpose in providing more of the suspense and the drama for the story, which, gore for gore's sake is something for another time too. But this here definitely added to the drama.
Well, shame on any viewer that starts a movie called Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where its main villain is named Leatherface because he wears the faces of people usually that he murders. In this one, he was wearing it of someone that was close to him that died. But shame on any viewer that goes into that kind of movie thinking it's not going to be gory.
Yeah, right. Oh, exactly.
And I did, whether you like the movie or not, I thought it was interesting how they showed him cutting off the face to put on, because I don't remember, when we go back and rewatch them all, we'll see it, but I don't remember ever seeing him actually do the process of cutting it off and putting it on.
Right. They tease it heavily in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the beginning, but it's not showed outright.
I am curious how it stays on.
I am too.
That's me being a little morbid, but I'm like, did he not need a hole puncher and some string?
Yeah. Well, in one of the movies, I want to say it may be the beginning too, is he sews it on. And so, but he didn't do that this time. He just breaks it off.
I mean, I'm like, if you bend your head forward, the lady's face is going to fall off.
Right. Yeah, that may be a technical thing for this movie. But yeah, definitely I had the same question too, because he just put it on, which I think for drama's sake at that point. But because Dante's girlfriend was watching him, and of course it's supposed to add to the suspense of what's about to happen to her. But that's an intriguing point of view.
Okay, so let's stay with you. Your next positive.
I really liked they cast Sarah Yarkin as Melody. She was one of my favorite characters in the movie, and it's just because everybody else was afraid of him or angry at that family for not vacating the building or whatever the case may be, thought he was an idiot. But she really sympathized early on with him. And you kind of thought, well, maybe he's going to look at her kind of like almost a Quasimodo and Esmeralda thing and the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and maybe find some kind of sympathy in, as we find out towards the end of the movie. He does not. He's just a visceral killer. But it was intriguing to me, her character, just because she was the only one that really had sympathy, and that's kind of, her and her sister were my two favorite characters. And just because of the fresh take of the school shooting aspect of it, that the sister had already gone.
Sister, right? That was with Lila.
Yeah, Lila's traumatic experience, that connection, and then the sympathy with Melody, Sarah Yarkin's character, that was intriguing to me. You don't normally find there a lot to be character development in these movies, maybe.
Yeah, it was definitely deeper than a lot of scary movies. It's fun. Now, the movie, everybody almost hung up the phone right there. The movie was not deep.
No.
The characters had a level to them that doesn't always exist in a scary movie. So had you ever seen Sarah Yarkin before? I had not.
I kind of remember her from a couple of shows. I can't remember right off the bat where I may have seen her, but one that brings me back to, I think I watched the Happy Death Day to You.
And she was in that. Was she in that?
Yeah, she was Andrea in that movie.
Oh, I love the Happy Death Days. Those are fun.
Yeah. Yes, that's where I first saw her. And so I kind of thought, well, maybe she's following the horror trend, but she's actually been in a lot of movies that have not been horror-based.
Well, cool. I already like her more than I did before we did this podcast, because I think Happy Death Days, those are fun movies.
Yeah, and they're kind of comical, so they're not too scary. I mean, and not that I ever mind scary movies, but they're not too scary. They don't take themselves real seriously, of course. But
that's the key statement. They don't take themselves too seriously.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so my second and you kind of talked about it, and I'm jumping to the end. I really liked the last scene, and then I liked the post-credit scene, but the end of the movie, and I knew they were setting something up, because you don't put a self-driving Tesla in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yeah. You're setting up one of two things. When I first saw it early, I thought, okay, they're either trying to explain to us that these young people are uber successful or uber privileged, and they already have a Tesla, but as soon, and scary movies, and there's always, as Scream would say, you got to shoot them in the head.
Yeah.
All right. Because there's always that last scare. As soon as they put the Tesla in self-driving mode, I told the imaginary person sitting next to me, this thing ain't over. One or both of them is still going to die.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I got completely fooled by the self-driving Tesla. I thought they were at home stretch. So I increasingly got the full blow and impact of the final kill because I did not see that coming right off the bat. I really didn't.
But even with me kind of seeing it coming, that's why I liked it, because, man, it leaves you disturbed.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And just because, again, it doesn't go too deep, but you know that there was some kind of distance between the two sisters and whether they were going to kind of stay very connected or not. And then that resolution happens and you're like, oh, okay, this is cool. And then just immediately after it happens. And again, they didn't ease up on the brutal kill at the end either.
No, they did not. I just take myself back to my 12-year-old self, and I would have loved this movie, but I'm promising you, I would have been thinking about that one well into the night as I was trying to sleep.
Well, which adds to it that you are, and so coming back to my earlier point that I like the character development a little bit, and I know that's not what you go to these movies for, but it helped in this case because you felt like out of all the kills, you know, you're like, okay, well, that one's gonna be off, that one's gonna be, you know, he's arrogant, so you know that we already know the arrogant character is gonna die in the movie because he doesn't have any moral compass or anything. But this one was like, oh, I really thought, why does he keep going after her? I thought that was the sympathizing. He sympathized with, you know, Melody, and then at the end, just brutally with one off, just to show the sister that I will, and I'm going to keep going.
Yeah, it left a mark, no doubt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then the other thing I had on my second was I grouped them together because they're both at the end. But I liked the post credit scene. You know, he's walking back to the old Sawyer, whatever you would call it, house, compound, establishment. And I mean, obviously, they're all these movies set up sequels.
Yeah.
But I like seeing, like, and I'll talk about it a little bit here in a minute with one of my other deals, but I'm not one of those guys that sits there and picks movies apart. I am thankful that at the age of 48, because I figure I'm going to be dead here pretty soon, that I'm still getting to watch Halloweens and Texas Chainsaw. I'm not one of those guys that thinks they need to stop making them. As long as they're making them, I'm going to be watching them. So I'm glad he's walking up to the house because that tells me maybe we're going to get us another one.
Yeah, I think so. And I think this was successful enough with the ratings from Netflix that they have a way of even incorporating maybe back Elsie Fisher again as Lila. I mean, I would like to see her go back, try to find something kind of intriguing to search out, or do this all over again with a bunch of teenagers or something that are, you know, fanatics about the house, and they go in there thinking it's empty because they hear about this story. So I think they got a lot of avenues to make a very
for sure. Okay, so we'll stay with me, and we're gonna save our last like for the end, and I'm gonna jump over to a dislike, and it's a pretty generic one, but it was obvious to me, and then I checked it to make sure I was right. It was obvious to me that it wasn't filmed in Texas.
Yeah,
and you could tell. Yeah. And again, I'm not trying to compare this to the 1974 version, but that me and you live in Texas, and no, we do not live in a place that looks like that place in 1974, but we've seen Texas heat.
Yeah.
We have out here where we live, it's pretty barren. And if you get outside of a community, we see that land that just goes forever and ever. And it's just barren.
Yeah.
And I felt like that was missing. I mean, when you watch the 1974, the atmosphere is a character in the movie. You feel it. You feel it. Like you leave the 1974 version sweaty and dirty.
Yeah.
And this one just felt clean, and I knew it wasn't filmed in Texas. And it ended up filming in Bulgaria, which obviously I've never been to Bulgaria. But that, if you're going to do Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you got to film it in Texas.
Yeah, I would agree, and you could easily tell. I'm with you. You could easily tell that it was not filmed. When you're from Texas, you just know Texas, and so that was it. Kind of took me out of the movie a little bit. So I do agree with you on that dislike.
All right, what's your first dislike?
My first dislike was generally, and this is kind of petty, I'm going to be honest with you, generally in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, there's more mystery behind the law enforcement characters in the movie. And this one, they were just bystand. I mean, pretty much they were bystanders to get off. And so I would have liked to see more mystery, like is, the main, like we talked about the Herb, the proprietor, I found him on IMBD, that he's the guy that owns the gas station. Okay, why did he answer the radio call? I'd like to see that developed a little bit better. And also, you've got where the law enforcement doesn't kind of like outsiders mostly in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. It seemed like here they were like, no, it's okay. They're there to help them. Where maybe in that first disagreement with the lady in the house, I would like them to maybe challenge that a little bit more. It's kind of, again, a small complaint, but it's just normally those characters have a little bit more mystery to them, and it seemed like they were pretty cut and dry, just, and for lack of a better term, non-playable characters that are going to just get off in the video game.
Well, your one is pretty much my two, because I agree. I wrote down that they weren't overly fleshed out, which goes against kind of what me and you were talking about, because like Lila she had obviously been a survivor of a school shooting. That's a big, like, you don't just throw that out there and not do something with it.
Yeah, I agree.
And then your cowboy, whom I'm not gonna lie, I liked him. Like, I thought he was a really good character, but I'm sitting here thinking, is he a bad guy? Is he a good guy? And then they do away with him quickly, and there's no mystery if he's coming back, because that sucker got done-skied.
Yeah.
But the other part, and it kind of goes with what you're saying with the non-mystery, there was no family. Okay, so go back to every Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Leatherface is the most notorious, but there's always a family.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I get that the orphanage lady, and I mean, I get his drive to do what he did in this movie is because of the family, but that's why I thought the cowboy might be a crazy brother. I thought the guy at the convenience store might be, working with them to make sure that they eat them for barbecue that night. But I missed the family. I missed that dynamic that Leatherface is one of a cannibalistic, crazy family.
Yeah, I agree. And within the first 10 minutes of the movie, or 15 by far, we lose the lady, the proprietor of the orphanage. And I like that motivated him to go on his killing spree, because it gives you a reason. But it also kind of took away from the mystery, because the Leatherface we all grew up with kills for no reason. That's just a part of their nature, the whole family's nature, and he's just following what his family does. He's just the best at it. And so that kind of did take away where I like the character development in the heroes. I don't know that I like the character development so much in Leatherface, which might be my number two thing. A part of that is the mystery of, like, just why is he like this, and we don't ever know. That's great. That keeps it suspenseful, keeps us coming back. Just because he's a murderous, rampaging lunatic.
So did you say we just got into your number two thing?
Yeah, that's number two. I didn't like where I liked the character development for the heroes. I did not like the character development for Leatherface. I just need him to be a murderer for murderer's sake. I hate to say that; it sounds brutal, but that's what we grew up with. And so it kind of added a little bit of heart to him a little bit. And I don't know that he was always so connected.
He's supposed to be a cannibal.
Yeah.
I mean, they kill people to eat.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And none of that was present.
They do. I mean, as crazy as it sounds, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, there's some strong family values within that family, because they do look out for each other. But I really did. I agree with you. I think they dropped the ball on that a little.
I do too. Yeah, that was definitely my two.
All right, so my number three was, and again, I've got some pros and cons on this. My last dislike was Sally Hardesty, because I thought when she showed up, I try really hard these days to go into movies spoiler free. I try not to watch too many trailers. So when they showed Sally Hardesty, as soon as it came into her in her little barn or whatever, wherever she was, slaughtering and gutting whatever she was doing, that fired me up. Because again, I'm all about Halloween ends, Halloween kills, and bringing back Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
If Friday the 13th would ever get over this lawsuit and come back, I read somewhere the other day that they do not need a Friday the 13th legacy sequel. Where I say yes, they do. Bring Tommy Jarvis, bring the survivor Jenny from 2, bring them all back. And Scream. We enjoyed Scream when they brought them back. So when they brought it back, I was fired up. I thought they had no idea what to do with her. When I'm not gonna lie, I kind of liked the scene in his bedroom because she's spent all these years just thinking about that day nonstop, as we all would. He don't even remember.
Yeah.
And not only does he not remember, but that we kind of got a glimpse into Leatherface's mind. He wasn't gonna kill her. He just walked right past her because she was not one of the ones that intruded and was trying to steal his home, and he don't know her from anybody. So I did kind of like that scene, but the very next time we see her, she's laughing like a maniac. She's told the girls they got to stay. Then she's tossing them the keys, telling them to get out of here. And I think they could have done a better job making this. I mean, I feel like they wanted it kind of to be Leatherface versus Sally Hardesty, but that's not what it became.
No, and I think that's the writing process there probably deterred from that. And I'm wondering if maybe they thought the parallel's too close to the new Halloween franchise. They didn't want to stay away from that. They wanted to add a shock to that, because spoiler alert, as we know, she gets pretty much massacred before the credits roll. She gets
again. I mean, she wasn't dead yet because she's laying over there in the trash bag shooting a shotgun. But to see her hit into that chainsaw was something else, wasn't it?
Yeah, yes. And you keep thinking, well, none of that brought to the overall theme of, okay, well, you can't even count on the hero. I mean, she really wasn't the hero. She was just more of a side hero character. But you can't even count on her living into the credits. I mean, I did like how they structured her character, the mentalities, and
because they said she was a ranger.
Yeah,
and I guess that's my point. She was supposed to. I just think she was supposed to be tougher, meaner, bigger competition than she was.
Yeah, I think so too. But I think she was played very well by Olin. Did a very good job. They wasted her character.
Okay, so what was your number 3 dislike?
Number 3 dislike is petty. Is really, again, petty on this part. I go to these movies to escape the real world, and this had a little bit of a political edge towards the beginning of the movie.
Every movie does now.
Yeah, and I'm just like, let it go. I come to these movies to get away from the outside world. Again, did it change my overall perception of the movie? No. Did it add to the characteristic traits of the heroes in the movie of why they were coming to this Texas town? Absolutely. So I get why they did it. It's just, to me, it was kind of like, let's get past that and let's get to the meat of the story, which is why are they going to go face to face with Leatherface and what's going to happen to the characters.
And kind of like what you're saying, when he's on the bus and he goes to where they're all having that little party in the back. And I get it. We're so used to craziness and violence, nobody freaks out. And that one dude, says, "Bro,
yeah,
trying to
cancel." Yeah, I actually like that phrase a little bit. It was
it was comical, but I agree. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We don't need it to be political.
Yeah, we go to these movies for escapism. So
absolutely. All right, so let's end this thing with a positive. Give me your final like.
My biggest like of this movie, and I actually did rank mine 3, 2, 1. That bus scene, the massacre on the bus scene, was absolutely the best scene, like compilation that I've seen in a long time. That was wild. It freaked me out a little bit, and that doesn't ever happen to me in horror movies because I'm the type that they took off the mask, they went home, everybody got back up, they cleaned up the corn syrup, and everybody was good. That right there gave me so much anxiety of these people are trapped on that bus, and he was just sawing through one right after another. And that to me was the most intense scene I've seen in a movie in a long time.
And they had nowhere to go. I like that. They could not escape.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And it was a character you sympathized very early on. And I can't think of her name, but Catherine, played by Jessica Elaine, she comes there as the banker or the person that's going to kind of help him secure the loan. And you see very early on, she's very sympathetic. She's really done anything wrong. She has no part to play in this. And the focus on her, and then everybody being slaughtered around her, then the sisters trying to get to the bus bathroom and hide, that because that upped your anxiety a little bit. It was just masterfully shot, and I thought that they did a good job of bringing in the suspense, giving you the gore that you needed, and then ultimately you thought Catherine was going to get out of that bus window, and she just didn't quite do it. But it was weirdly crafted, so it just brought that suspense up higher. I remember just watching it last night and thinking, my gosh, I hate to be on that bus, you know?
Oh yeah, no doubt. And like you said early, I mean, the gore was in that was a violent scene.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my last like is one of your dislikes, but I think I'll take your dislike and twist it a little bit. And you kind of said it was Sally Hardesty, the lady that played what was Sally's name, Olin.
Yeah,
she did really good with what they gave her. So I'm going to take that as my last like. I feel like Mark Burnham, who played Leatherface, I thought he did a great job with what they gave him. Like,
I did too.
He was good, and I'm not going to get into why he didn't have a family, why they weren't. Was he accountable? Wasn't he accountable? But I thought his walk was good. He's a big old dude. I would like to see how big that dude is. He, when I'll tell you this right now, rarely in these movies do you see the bad guy flat out bum rush a victim.
Yeah.
And I think it happened twice. I know he does it to Sally. I think he runs one other time. When he's running at the screen, I mean, my guess is he's probably about 6'6", probably pushing 300. I played football, and if the defensive end is 6'7" and you're the quarterback and about 300 pounds, and they run straight at you, you know, they don't have chainsaws. Throw a chainsaw into that hand.
Yeah.
An intense sight that will definitely freeze you up. So I just thought he did a good job. I thought that what they gave him to work with, he took it and ran with it, and I had no beef with the way Leatherface was played. I actually kind of enjoyed it.
No, yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And also, I mean, the casting of this was perfect. I mean, they did a great job casting the people they cast putting there. Yeah, Owen as Sally Hardesty was perfectly cast. I like the way she played it and what she had to work with. And I agree with you. Leatherface just had all the mentalities of original Leatherface. It kind of upped him a little bit, upped the ante a little bit. Like you said, with his running at the camera, you just kind of got the full force that these people were outmatched by a long shot.
Okay, so stay with it. Tell me, we've gone through your 3 likes, your 3 dislikes. I got 2 questions left for you. Is it a watch or don't watch? And if it's a watch, kind of what audience is this meant for? And then we're going to rank our movies on 1 to 10. And since this is Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you're going to give this movie between 1 chainsaw and 10 chainsaws.
I love it.
And then you're going to kind of tell me why. So watch or not watch, and then give me a ranking.
I do say watch. This was well worth the brutality behind it. It was a very worthy addition to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. These things are mostly due to try to revamp interest. I think it did. I think your last teaser makes you want to watch, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. And I think this audience is for fans and non-fans of the franchise. As someone who was a fan of the franchise, it did what it was supposed to do, which keep me interested, coming back for more. Non-fan of the franchise, you're going to want to go back and explore some of this history in the franchise. So I'm going to go ahead and give it 8 chainsaws. My 3 dislikes were very, very minuscule in comparison to my 3 likes. And I even thought about watching it again, which is normally something that I don't normally do with horror movies.
8 chainsaws is a lot.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. It was really good.
Okay, so I'm going to go backwards. And I'm going to say I gave it 5.5 chainsaws. Okay.
Oh, wow.
But you also have to understand, scary movies are the closest thing to a roommate, to a relative, to the brother I never had. So I might be a little harder, but I'm also going to say with that amount, 5.5 chainsaws, I also say it's a watch.
Yeah.
because it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you talked about how it had a bit of politicalness to it.
Yeah.
It is not like we said Happy Death Day. It
No.
does take itself very seriously.
Yeah.
But listen, it's 2022 and we're getting to watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Leatherface on our couch in a brand new movie.
Yeah.
You know, and I got no beef with that. I enjoyed it. I've watched it 3 times. I'm not gonna lie to you.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And there are parts of it that I'll go clean the house while it's on, but there's parts of it that whatever I'm doing, I'm going to stop because I want to go watch it again.
Right.
5.5 chainsaws, but really enjoyable. The audience it's for, I would say, anybody but my parents.
Yeah.
They do not need to watch the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022. Everybody else should go watch it.
Yeah.
Did you know, and I found this out, and you are not the video game player that I am. You play them a little bit.
Yeah, I dabbled into it when I was younger, more college and teenage years.
Well, and you know this about me, I'm a Friday the 13th, the game junkie. I'm level 150 on PlayStation and Xbox. Not that means anything to those that play it. You know, it's just steady work to get there. But the same company that made Friday the 13th the game is soon going to release the Texas Chainsaw Massacre video game.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I actually read that the other day, and I kind of thought of you when I read that. That's amazing.
And what I liked about it is, you know, with most games, it's one bad guy versus, because it's a multiplayer game, and like with Friday the 13th, there's Jason, and then there's counselors, and the counselors are either trying to escape, survive, or kill Jason. But there's one Jason and seven counselors. They're going to make this one more family oriented, not for the kids, family, but back to what we were talking about. There's going to be 4 trying to survive and then 3 family members. So Leatherface plus 2 family members.
That's sick. Yeah, that's going to be a good game. Now you want me to go make me want to go buy a console to start playing.
Well, I would like you to, so that I have someone to play with the night it's released, because I will be purchasing that night. Much like I purchased Friday the 13th, the game, the night it came out, and then proceeded to not be able to play it because it was so broke for the first 48 hours.
Oh, wow.
But since then, I've gotten to play it a lot. All right. Justin, any last comments for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Oh, just watch it. It's really good. If you wanted to see again, I don't jump easily at these movies or become unnerved at these movies, but there's several scenes in this movie that kind of make your heart sink and go, oh my gosh, you know, it's just shocking and definitely worth a watch for sure.
And I agree. You don't have to go to the theater to see it. Most of us have Netflix in this day and age. And I'd say there's a whole lot worse ways you can kill an hour and 23 minutes of free time.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this was our first joint movie episode, Justin. I will be back. Now, we're going to kind of leave you in suspense because like I told Justin, like I told you guys, we would like to kind of do a franchise. And I was not going to do – I'll tell you what, Justin, I didn't want to do Halloween first because I consider Halloween one of the big 3.
Yeah.
All right. Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. Those are the big 3. Yeah. And so I'm not going to lie to you. I was going to start off with a Hellraiser because Hellraiser has some that are so bad. I figured that if we as a podcast are bad, we would just be equaling the quality of Hellraiser. Yes. But the flip side of that is I think it'd be a lot of fun to try to go all the way through the Halloweens and then do a weekend of release podcast of Halloween next October. Okay, yes. So we're going to leave the audience in suspense, but whenever we do return, you will know if we decide to take on the Halloween franchise, we will be doing Halloween. If not, maybe we will be doing Hellraiser. For all those that are for all those that want to listen to a podcast about
Hellraiser.
There's about 10 of them, and I know I believe 5 of them were straight to DVD, but you can get them on Pluto for free. Advertisement to Pluto. So,
there you go.
Justin, thank you, man. You are You are officially a co-host. You are graduated guest. You are officially a co-host.
I wear that badge with honor. That's amazing. This has been a fun time, and I rarely get to just sit down and talk to movies with movie lovers. And so that's what I find more fun about this than anything, is just creating that or generating that love to other people listening to this podcast.
All right, perfect, man. Well, we will be back next month for ACOS Movie Night. Thank you guys for listening.
You have been listening to ACOS Podcast, All Kinds of Stuff, with your host, David Ritchie. And I sincerely want to thank you for stopping by and giving us a chance. The music you hear now and the music you hear at the beginning of our podcast was done by my 13-year-old son, Hayden Ritchie. And everything I do is inspired by not just Hayden, but my other son, Logan Ritchie, as well. You can find me at Twitter, at ACOS Podcast. That is capital A, capital K, capital O, capital S, capital P, and everything else is in little letters. At ACOS Podcast. Feel free to follow me, reach out with any questions you have. Have a great week. Thank you for listening.